Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode 511 for the 5th of August, 2018. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. And the sort of weather I just love, folks. It's nice and cool, well, not cold in the daytime. It feels good to feel the sun on your face, but it's not hot and it's not humid. I sort of wish it could be like this all year. Good weather for a light coat and long walks. Coming up on this, you don't want to hear about my long walks in the good weather. Coming up on this week's show, we're going to be interviewing Claire Klingenberg, all the way from the Czech Republic. Now, Claire, a noted skeptic, is the president of the European Council on Skeptical Organisations. And shortly, she'll be travelling to visit Scotland to give some talks in Edinburgh and Glasgow. So people in Edinburgh and Glasgow, stay tuned. More information about those talks coming up with my interview with Claire Klingenberg. And we'll be bringing you news about this movie, Sacrificial Virgins, the anti-vaccination movie targeting the Gardasil vaccination. The producer is not coming to Australia to front her movie. Why, you ask? Why has this happened? Find out later on when I bring you a fresh update on this story. Then it's Skeptics in the Pub, Maynard's Spooky Action. Maynard and I head for Skeptics in the Pub here in Sydney, and we interview all sorts of people about all sorts of things. In fact, we had a double act going. We both have very nice microphones now. Maynard's had a wonderful Yellowtech microphone for some years, and I just acquired one a few weeks ago, as listeners might remember, thanks to your generosity, of course. And I'm using it right now. And we both run around the pub and interview all sorts of people and find out about the Australian Skeptics Blood Drive here in Sydney coming up in September. Then to round off the show, I interview Craig Shearer, the chair of the New Zealand Skeptics. And he's going to be telling us about the New Zealand Skeptics Conference coming up in November in beautiful Auckland. And if you're in New Zealand, I encourage you to check out the New Zealand Skeptics, skeptics.nz, and find out more about the convention. But you can listen to the show a bit later on and have Craig Shearer tell you all about it. Now I have some more announcements and bits and pieces at the end of the show, but for now it's time for me to run downstairs and whip up some pancakes with butter and maple syrup. Good old Canadian recipe, I think. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. And joining me now all the way from one of the most spectacularly beautiful countries I've ever visited, the Czech Republic, just near Prague, it's Claire Klingenberg. Hello, Claire.
Hello.
Hello. Wonderful to catch up with you. I haven't seen you since we saw each other, it was at New York last year, I think. Yes.
Yes, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun because I was just standing there minding my own business and suddenly this ball of energy rushes up to me with a big smile on her face. and it was so nice to see you. Now, for those people who don't know too much about you, Claire, what can you tell us about yourself?
So, I am currently the president of the European Council of Skeptical Organisations. We try to oversee and coordinate European skeptic activity to make sure that we are all on the same page and we share resources. And what I do for the skeptic movement in my country, in the Czech Republic, is that I cooperate with the Paranormal Challenge. We test people who claim to have supernatural abilities. And for me, as a personal my study life is that I focus on religion, and I'm getting my degree in religious studies.
Wow, that's fascinating. And as I said at the introduction, Czech Republic is a beautiful place. It really is. I had the pleasure of going to Olomouc about 5 years ago for the AFO, the documentary, the film festival. And my goodness me, what a wonderful time I had there. Now, what currently is forefront in the mind or the activities of the European Council of Skeptical Organisations? Is there one thing that you're pushing or promoting or investigating at the moment?
Well, currently we're taking a summer break, but no, to be serious. We are trying to create materials on various skeptical topics, which can be easily translated to different languages. So we will really have kind of unified message that we will be pushing forward on the topics, for example, such as GMOs or vaccines, all things related to skepticism. And what we are working on now, of course, is also our colleagues are preparing the next European Skeptics Congress. So which will be happening next year in late August, early September, most likely in Ghent. So that's the two main things we're working on right now.
That's a lot of work. I know. I mean, organising any convention, any conference like that, and of course, we have a big one coming up here in Sydney in only a couple of months. I know how much work that can be. So it's good that you have a year, the longer the better, to organise these things, and I'm sure that we'll be hearing more about that as time progresses. Now, you're not just sitting back having a nice holiday, are you? You're preparing to go to Scotland. What can you tell me about that?
Yes. I'm really excited, more than my usual excitement for my talks, because this time I'll get to talk about my passion, which is religion, which might sound strange for a skeptic to say, but I am really fascinated by belief and how belief works. And this time in Scotland, I'll be giving a talk in Glasgow for the skeptics in Glasgow, and then at the Skeptics on the Fringe in Edinburgh about what we can learn from religious people and from visiting various religious cults and religious movements.
Wow, that's really interesting, because of course it all ties in with skepticism, especially because these are things that we can examine and test, these sort of claims when it comes to we get things like demonic possession and things like that, which I find very interesting.
Yes, it's not just about demonic possession. It's kind of devoting your whole life or changing your whole life based on faith and based on belief and sometimes superstition. And that's why I find visiting cults so fascinating, that the people kind of rearrange their whole lives around this pretty much up to a point untestable or up to a certain point unprovable belief.
I guess for much of human history, the vast majority of it, that's how our ancestors would live day to day, wasn't it?
Exactly. I mean, you hope that if you sacrifice your goats to the rain god, yes, it was going to rain. So, yeah. So, but of course, people live like that today. I mean, there's still a lot of superstition. People do live with superstition. I was just reading this detective novel at the airport when I was traveling from New York back to Prague from this year's Nexus. Uh-huh. And there was a beautiful line in it about people who live their life based on superstition are giving up control over their own destiny and over their own fate. So I love that.
That's an interesting quote. Yes, that's very interesting indeed. And I hope you had a good time this year at Nexus.
Oh, yeah. This time it didn't burn down, so they actually had the auditorium that they wanted.
Of course, I've forgotten about that. When we went there last year, we had to we were shuffled around for various places because where we were going to speak was burning. It was a bit strange.
Yep.
Well, I hope that Scotland has a better welcome for you than a burning building. What are your dates in Scotland exactly? Do you have those?
So I'm going to be speaking on August 21st, actually, on Tuesday, in Edinburgh, and on Monday before that in Glasgow for the Glasgow Skeptics.
Well, I'm sure you'll give them my personal regards. I Some years back, I had the wonderful experience of speaking for the Edinburgh Skeptics and their Skeptics in the Pub, which is just a wonderful night. I really had a good time. Folks, I'll put links to the talks if you're in Scotland to Claire's upcoming visits and talks. If you can make it, I'm sure you'll have a wonderful evening. Well, Claire, I hope you have a great time, and I hope you have
Thank you.
Continued success with your very prestigious title there in Europe.
No, I mean, but just to do a little plug, I mean, Sean Slater and his group of Edinburgh Skeptics, they really do a great job every year on this Edinburgh on the Fringe and the Skeptics on the Fringe Festival. They have so many cool talks happening. So if you're in Edinburgh at that time, please do and check that out. Not just me, but all the other cool stuff they have going on.
Without doubt. I think that would be a wonderful thing to visit. Nearly 20 years ago, I was not at the skeptical events, but I did attend a science event where they were testing water divining in Edinburgh. And that was very interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, actually, I'm going next week to visit my colleagues in Germany. They are going to test like 4 or 5 divining rod people there.
Oh, I'm jealous. I am so jealous. Ich bin eifersüchtig. That's what they would say. I'm really jealous. I would love to be there. Well, good luck with that, and I look forward to any reports.
They're great.
But for now, Claire Klingenberg from the beautiful Czech Republic, thank you very much.
Thank you, too. Bye.
Calling all Skeptic Zone listeners. Do you live in or near Glasgow, or are you planning to visit sometime? Then you're in luck, because the Glasgow Skeptics have got your Monday nights sorted. We're committed to filling up every available Monday night with talks on science and skepticism. Past speakers include Eugenie Scott, Jerry Coyne, Michael Marshall, Nate Phelps, Tom and Cecil from Cognitive Dissonance, P.Z. Myers, Richard Wiseman, A.C. Grayling, Noah Heath and Eli from The Scathing Atheist, Simon Singh, Rebecca Watson, and a multitude of local academics and skeptics. There's literally nothing better you can do on a Monday night in Glasgow that doesn't involve taking your clothes off. So come join us. We've also got a vibrant online community. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and get involved with the discussion. Glasgow Skeptics. Self-help for your brain.
Now here's an update to a story we brought you last week about the movie Sacrificial Virgins, the anti-vaccination movie aimed at the Gardasil vaccination. And last week we told you how the Minister for Health was not pleased with this movie coming to Australia. Well, the strange thing is, it's available free online. It's on YouTube. It's in 3 parts. I've suffered through the first part. I will suffer through the next 2 parts. David Gorski has done a very good write-up about it, and I'll link to that in the show notes, and I encourage you to read that before viewing the movie. Or view the movie, then read that. But this news comes to us from news.com.au, and it was published on the 1st of August. Visa delay halts anti-vaxxer filmmaker Joan Shenton's tour of Australia. A controversial filmmaker has cancelled her trip to Australia to promote her anti-vaccination film, slammed by the government. Now, I can't see a byline, so I'm not sure who's written this. However, the maker of an anti-vaccination, quote, documentary, end quote, to be aired in 7 secret locations has cancelled her tour of Australia because her visa application wasn't determined in time. This might be welcome news to Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt, who has slammed British journalist Joan Shenton's controversial film Sacrificial Virgins ahead of its launch in Australia on Thursday, and that would have been Thursday just gone. The anti-vaccination film opposes the Gardasil vaccine, claims that human papillomavirus, HPV, it protects against, does not cause cervical cancer, and that the vaccine can cause, quote, neurological damage, end quote. Mr. Hunt says that's rubbish and the film spreads, quote, false and reckless claims, end quote. Gardasil is administered free in Australia to boys and girls aged 10 and over as part of the National Immunisation Program and Government's Cancer Prevention Program. Now, last week when I read a report, I actually misspoke. I misquoted and I said National Immigration Program, where I meant to say National Immunisation Program, and I didn't pick it up in post-editing. Sorry about that. We read on, quote, the science is in and the medical experts' advice is absolute. Vaccination saves lives and protects lives, and they are an essential part of a healthy society, end quote, Mr. Hunt told Fairfax when the Australian launch of the film was announced. Quote, I have no time for the false and reckless claims made by anti-vaxxers, and I will continue to call out their dangerous claims, end quote. And I think that's probably from a press release because last week there was a similar quote being used. Meanwhile, the man behind the Gardasil vaccine, Australian scientist Ian Fraser, said the film was, quote, fake news, and there was no evidence to support the claim that HPV vaccine caused harm, and warned it may cause preventable deaths. And I think he's referring to the film there. Quote, spreading fake news about vaccines can only lead to anxiety in parents and the community, and possibly loss of lives if young boys and girls are not vaccinated as a consequence, end quote, he said. The Australian Vaccination Risks Network, and remember they used to be the Australian Vaccination Skeptics Network, and before that the Australian Vaccination Network, President Tasha David suggested Ms. Shenton was, quote, refused permission, end quote, to enter Australia because she was told last week her visa application had been taken out of the automated assessment procedure and was being, quote, manually assessed, end quote, by the Department of Home Affairs. With no answer before she was due to fly, she cancelled her trip. Her visa remains, quote, under consideration, end quote, a Home Affairs spokesman told SBS, the Special Broadcasting Service, which I think was the original source of this report. Now, I will link to this update in the show notes, but to boil it down, it's simply the news that Joan Shenton is not coming to Australia. The film is currently being screened as I record this, I believe, but as I said at the beginning, it's freely available online. You can watch this dreadful documentary if you want to. And again, I urge you to also read David Gorski's takedown criticisms of this documentary. And as a documentary maker myself, if you Google the Vaccination Chronicles, link in the show notes, you'll see I've also done other documentaries on water divining. As a documentary maker myself, technically it's not so good, it's not so flash, but as they say, content is king, but even a poorly made documentary on a good subject with great interest can be worth watching. I'm afraid this one sort of falls down on both fronts. Now, there might be some more news coming our way about this saga. I'm not sure. We'll find out in the coming weeks, and if there is more news, we shall bring it to you.
Hi, g'day. I'm Dr. Karl, and I'm honoured to be speaking at Skepticon Australia 2018. And first, were the hippies right when they said that reality is only for people who can't handle drugs? Well, we're going to explore that. So what is the real colour of the universe? Do people use only 10% of their brain? Do the 7 deadly sins actually still exist? Do diet drinks get you drunker? How can you tell quickly if a list of numbers is faked? And are we living in the best or the worst of times? And what generates more power on a weight per weight and volume for volume basis? The sun or your compost pile? And worst of all, I'll tell you the real truth about Santa.
Meet Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki at Skepticon 2018, the Australian Skeptics National Convention, October the 13th and 14th at the Concourse Chatswood. Tickets available at convention.skeptics.com.au.
Here's Maynard's spooky action. at a distance.
It's Skeptics in the Pub once again here in Sydney. I'm with Maynard.
Hello, Richard. Great to be here too, using our double mic setup. We'll see how this works, see if it works or not tonight. And we've also got our mic cubes on there, which you actually put in delicious soup, or you put in water to make podcasting soup. Microphone cubes. Try it at home, kids.
Microphone cubes. Photograph on the Facebook site. I'll put a photograph on the Facebook site so listeners can see.
And if you're thinking, what the hell is that suit Maynard's wearing? Well, it's from Greville Street in Melbourne at 1990. And the brand is Atomic, which no longer exists. And once you see the suit, you might find out why. Might explain it.
The crowd is rolling in as we speak. We've got the regular...
They're off their heads. It's amazing the way they go for a bit of a drink to warm up.
Yes, let's have a look around. Maynard's gone ahead. I think he's heading for the bar.
Now, we usually have a question, Rich. If you come up with a question for everybody.
You know what? I haven't got a question tonight. I've drawn a bit of a blank, but I guess we can ask our old friend and physicist Ian Bryce, who's sitting over there.
Because Ian's in the middle of everything and he's eating something, so I'll see how Richard goes.
Come round here. I'm walking around the table now, and I'm heading for the Chief Investigator or the Challenge Coordinator for the Australian Skeptics, Ian Bryce. Good evening, Ian.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
I'm very well. What's the hot topic in skepticism at the moment, as far as you're concerned?
Oh, well, some of you might remember Stephen Horvath and his hydrogen fusion-powered water car.
Now, this is
Peterson in the 1980s.
This is going back a long time. Yes, the 1980s. This was in Queensland, a man who said he could run his car on water, right?
He did indeed, and he gave a media demonstration. But it was very sad. When it came time to start the car, he couldn't find the key.
Oh.
Anyway, the point is, he's reappeared with a cold fusion machine on the go.
Oh, no.
So I was a much younger skeptic investigator in those days, like it was 1980s compared to the teens. So presumably he's that much older as well. So he can't be any spring chicken either.
No. So. I'm surprised. I mean, that's one of the stories I remember hearing in the very early days of the Skeptics.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I think he's got a company called Star Scientific or something like that now. It's on my list to investigate to see what he's up to. But he's no doubt receiving money again and making claims about saving the world, saving the planet from its energy shortage and carbon-free energy and all that. So
there's nothing new under the sun, Ian.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Look, as we usually like to start at the back of the room, because the naughty people are at the back of the room. They're on the back of the room on that side and here. Who have we got here?
I'm Nick Prowse. Nice to meet you.
Nick, great to meet. Maynard's my name. Great to meet you too. Now, I've been asking people, what is the most modern woo they can think of? One of the newer woos that's come along? Because people say, oh, there's nothing new under the sun. Well, occasionally there is. What's one you can think of?
Well, I'm not sure how modern this is, but the earwax cleaning where they light a...
Ear candling.
Ear candling, that's what it's called.
They sell it as being like a Hopi Indian thing, don't they, or something?
Yeah, so I suppose it's got a bit of a tradition.
But has it? Or do they just go, oh, well, look, we'll just tell them it's Hopi Indian. That'll do. Yeah, everybody's all kind of squatsy. They'll love this.
As long as it feels like it's old world, I think that's what...
Have you ever done it?
No, I've never done it. I've seen people do it.
I had the, fortune of doing it the night before I went to see an ear, nose and throat guy. Right. So the next day I was having an autometry test, and he said, what have you been doing? Was the first thing he said to me, and I went, ear candling. He said, there's all soot inside your ear canal. He said, never do that again. Yeah. He was horrified that I did it.
Yeah. Well, it's surprising how much is supposed to come out of a 2-centimetre hole, too. I always find that, they unravel it and there's, mountains of build-up that's supposed to have all
crammed. And the thing is, it comes out of the hole. If you just let it there on nothing, it would still do it.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a great trick.
Yeah.
It's the same with the soles of the feet one, isn't it? They go brown no matter what anyway.
Yeah. That and Reiki, which sort of fit into the same sort of practice a bit of the time, I think.
I like Reiki when they can do it over the phone.
Yeah.
That's the one I like, because that's great. I mean, gee, if that ever got onto Medicare, there'd be a lot of people making a lot of money.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah.
Look, enjoy your evening tonight.
Thank you very much.
Now, Maynard's working one end of the room. I'm down here at the other end of the room. Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see you here back again at Skeptics in the Pub. As a regular pubber, if I could put it that way. What is it about skeptics in the pub? I mean, is it the variety? Is it the chance to mingle socially?
I really like the talks. You get some really interesting guest speakers in. Yeah.
So, because I know there's people around the world who think, well, shall we have a skeptics in the pub or not in their location? I always say yes. So from your point of view, it's having interesting speakers every month, huh?
It is for me. And you can look at the topic online. You think, I really, really want to see that. You get a point of view that you can't necessarily find easily online, for example, amidst all the noise. So if you find interesting people, then I definitely want to hear from them.
Yes, it's a very good point. I come here for the shampoo myself.
Yeah, well, of course, it goes without saying, doesn't it?
Thanks.
Hey, Eran. Look at Eran. He's our happy president here. He's been out there making... Have you written any presidential decrees like Trump, written down some stuff and given it to people?
Yeah, an executive order.
Hey,
yeah.
sorry, an executive order.
So my executive order says that everybody must behave rationally from now on.
Well, good luck with that.
Well, good luck with Trump's executive order.
Hey, look, what we've been asking people, and you might be up on this, is I've been asking people, what do you think is the newest woo that's around? We all know old-time woo, like astrology would perhaps be one of the oldest
It would
ones.
have to be a medical woo of some sort.
Oh, yeah?
Medical or lifestyle. Because that's what's happening at the moment. People are always looking for magic solutions to their problems.
So what about that cranial one where they put the balloon up your nose? How new is that one?
Yeah,
that's where they inflate the balloon up your nose.
I was lucky enough to be oblivious to that until now. So thank you, Maynard.
That's okay. I think it's a subset of chiropractics. I think it is, yeah.
I don't even know what to say to that.
It's a balloon up the nose. You inflate the balloon a bit and it balances the bones just inside the sinuses or something.
I think an ENT would be better equipped to deal with my nose than a chiropractor. And a balloon up my nose, well... No, I don't know. Look, I'm not a medical expert, of course, but it doesn't sound right to me.
Look, there's plenty of apps on your mobile phone that are pretty woo-y, like the ones that show you pretty colours and supposedly make you relax and stuff like that. That's a bit...
Well, I think it could make you relax. The question is whether there's evidence that it actually does that on a regular basis and better than other things. You know, there's all kinds of things. You know, playing solitaire maybe makes you relax as well.
That's too. Yep.
So I don't know. I'm not sure that any of these stack up in terms of evidence.
Okay, good point. You enjoy your night.
Thanks.
Okay.
You too.
Cool.
It's Tim Medham. Tim, the question of the night. I think the question of the night. What's the most recent woo you've heard about?
Oh, today?
I mean, you're on the front line of the Australian Skeptics. You would get questions often, or people are inquiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sort of the ones I've had recently were obviously the Miracle House. He mentioned that one, the journalist.
No, that's a good point. Please tell our audience.
Yeah, well, basically, there's a house in the western suburbs of Sydney where the son of the family died in a car crash in about the 2008, 2009, and apparently his spirit has come back and is manifesting itself in the house by dropping oil down the side of the walls and leaving ash in the floor, etc. And it's become a bit of a tourist spot, a bit of a sort of a lot of the Lourdes type tours are actually turning up there, and people are coming to pray and do all sorts of wonderful things about it.
Now, this was a story, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I was on one of these TV shows to make my comment about it, but I've never actually gone to the house.
No, I haven't been to the house either, but I know Ian has. Our challenge coordinator has been there.
Right.
He went back there when it was first, pretty much it was pretty soon after it was first announced, but they're still going and still going strong. They've got a Facebook page, lots of videos and things they're showing. They're having concerts there. It's all sorts of things, so it seems to be sort of very exciting for them, you know, which is interesting. But I mean, to my point of view, and I was having a chat with a journalist about it, the manifestations of this thing are the most banal things you've ever heard. You know, apart from the oil running down the wall, which looks like it's been splashed on and it's just running down, some of which is now turning brown and probably getting a bit smelly. There's ash, which turns out, the oil turns out to be, has been tested scientifically, turns out to be vegetable oil mixed with water. There's the ash on the floor, which turns out to be just charcoal. There's now appearing bits of incense, which weren't there before, so there's a bit of a development, bit of evolution in the miracles. But the manifestations, there's things being written on the walls, like the sun's birth date, which means God works in a Gregorian calendar. But, I mean, and honestly, it'd be more interesting if something exciting happened, something really sort of, definitive, state something that sort of, will Tony Abbott become Prime Minister? That sort of thing. Something like that.
Now, we covered this some years ago in the journal, The Skeptic, and I'll add a link on the show notes. And in fact, I wrote something about it all those years ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to reread it myself to remember.
Yeah, well, sort of after Ian and you sort of made your pronouncements on TV, me, being the front line, kept getting phone calls from outraged people saying, you dirty heathens, etc. I think, hang on. Anyway, so, yeah. That's the price you pay for being on the front line.
The front line. Now, I was on radio last night here in New South Wales in the evenings. Have you got any reactions at the desk from that?
No.
No, all right. Wasting my time, really.
No. I'm sure it'll come in. I mean, we've been getting a lot of...
Because I bagged homeopathy.
You bagged homeopathy very well, actually. And I think he did have some phone calls that came in, I heard. Actually, they were quite supportive of you. Some that weren't, but... Yeah.
In the studio, yeah, they didn't put them all to air.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good to hear, actually. No, because we also promoted the Ben Spoon Award,
yep,
which I am getting a good run on, actually. Various things. A lot of nominations coming in for various people, especially a lady named Sarah Stevenson, who has a blog called Sarah's Day, in which she has described how she has cured herself of precancerous cervical issues, and with natural foods and that sort of stuff, and a bit of prayer as well.
Now, we've heard this sort of thing before, haven't we?
Yeah, cropped up many times. So a lot of people are pretty outraged about that one, actually.
So if people want to nominate somebody in Australia for the Ben Spoon Award, they just go to skeptics.com.au.
Go to skeptics.com.au, pull down one of the menus, and you'll see Ben Spoon Awards down there, and you can sort of see the past winners of the Ben Spoon Award, and you can make your own nomination for this year as well.
And if you're feeling particularly bored one day, just ring up Tim and tell him your amazing claim.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Thanks a lot. I get those all the time.
I'm going to speak to the person who actually gave us the question tonight, because this is a real winner, I thought, and I really enjoyed your segment on the latest Skeptic Zone as well.
Well, that's where the inspiration came from, is modern woo. Like, we've moved into the 21st century, and there's all sorts of random crap out there, and I think that it's nice to embrace it and pick it apart.
Well, it's true, because a lot of people say, there's nothing new under the sun as well, but a lot of these are reworking of old ideas, but there's some stuff in there. I remember there was an iPhone app that would flash colours at you that would make you relax, and I think it was also, there was one where a Chinese one, they reckoned they could purify stuff by the colours, and I thought, no, there's no colour that's going to come out of an LED screen that's going to kill bugs.
Yeah, exactly, and things as well, like, the little stickers that you're supposed to put on the back of your phone, and it protects you, and like if they actually worked, then your phone wouldn't work, all that kind of stuff. So that's very modern, isn't it? It's a modern take on things, and yeah, it's very interesting.
And of course, you brought up the fact that all the ones that measure your cycle for when you're trying to get pregnant or not get pregnant is very individual and highly variable.
Yeah, I mean, so like they claim some 95-ish% efficacy, but that's in like a very, very small number of people.
And who has time to take the correct basal temperature at the same time every day, who actually has a life?
Right, exactly. I know, I certainly don't.
I know, exactly. Well, it's an odd thing to do first thing in the morning, and of course, it's got to be when you just wake up, isn't it? Like, you can't be too awake, or else the temperature changes immediately, doesn't it?
You literally have to be opening your eyes and shoving a thermometer in your mouth. No thanks.
Wow. And how and does it go up or down after you wake up, by the way? Usually, I would imagine you up a bit, because you...
I think it generally goes up a little bit. It certainly fluctuates. And obviously things like, the idea is you do it as soon as you wake up, because if you've brushed your teeth or done things like that, then obviously you're going to affect it. If you're eating and drinking, it's going to affect it, all that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of for a good baseline. But bear in mind, humans lie all the time. And we lie to ourselves all the time. So, people will be taking their temperature just after they've had breakfast because, I just forgot, but I'll just do it now. Exactly. People do it with the pill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're supposed to take the pill at the same time every single... No, you don't. Come off it.
You're out by a couple of hours. Occasionally you could miss a day.
Yeah, and then, I'll just take 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not how it works.
Well, that works with antibiotics, doesn't it?
No.
Now, what would you... So, is there one woo you want to mention specifically at all? Because you mentioned the iPhone. Is there one app... I mean, you mentioned the cycle one. Is there one that you would suggest we have a look at to go, ha-ha?
I think one of my favourite modern woos is this whole blocking cell phone radiation and all that kind of stuff, because I just love the fact that if that did work, your phone would not work. It's so easy to test, but everyone still, you still see people nowadays, they even have the ones that go in your headphone jack if you've still got a headphone jack and all that kind of stuff, and you just think like, really, you're advertising to the world that you've bought into this expensive nonsense.
So you can get small Faraday bags, but for your phone, can't you? So that, yes, it doesn't work, but that isn't very good, because then your phone's not working.
Yeah, I've actually seen quite a few artists do this at gigs now, where when you go in, they force you to hand in your phone to be put into this little like magic bag that stops all, and it's for security, so obviously they lock it away in a locker or they give it back to you, but it's locked, which I think is like an interesting idea. But if you've got kids, and so there's a babysitter with them, the last thing you want is to be thinking, oh God, I could be getting a phone call right now and I wouldn't know about it.
So they're mainly worried about you filming their concert. That's a problem. Right.
And like screens everywhere. I think that kind of stuff is, the technology obviously exists and it works, but I think it's been poorly implemented. Like, you can't go about forcing people. You should be encouraging people to enjoy your gig more, and then maybe you won't be attached to your phone the whole time.
Look, and has anyone ever watched a video that they've taken of an artist on stage? I don't. Who has watched the 1 hour video that they've made?
Well, and that's the most disappointing
thing. Terrible
thing.
Sound.
Yeah, you go on YouTube because you want to see that gig from last night that you couldn't go to, and it's some utterly awful, and it's just like is all you can hear because they were right next to the speaker the whole time, and it's just like bouncing around.
Or their friends talking to them really pissed. Oh, that's really bad. I wouldn't do. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Exactly. Nah, lame.
And of course we have a return here. Who have we got here?
Jessica Hazard-White.
Yeah, you haven't been here for a while.
No, I've been busy with uni stuff and then feeling stressed and feeling exhausted, but I'm here tonight. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, it's great. And you've had a bit of time to think about what modern woo you've encountered. Maybe you've encountered in your job or your studies. What's a new woo that's come about?
Oh, golly, now I'm getting a mind blank. I think one thing, this might have already been covered in different skeptical fields, I think it has, but the thing that Gwyneth Paltrow was promoting, that were these little stickers of like astronaut suit fabric, or so they said. I imagine it probably was.
So many things on her site you could have mentioned, and this is one I don't know about. Tell us this.
So it was this little sort of stickers that you're supposed to stick on your body that apparently is made out of the fabric of astronaut suits. I have no idea if it was. Probably wasn't.
I'm loving this.
Okay, but they're quite fashionable little stickers, so I can imagine some people would really like to accessorize with them, which is not a problem in and of itself as long as they're not too expensive. But they were making quite big claims. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was relating to maybe health or Trish has pulled it up. What does it say they do?
Biofrequency healing.
Biofrequency healing. I don't know what that means, but I think it probably doesn't work.
I suspect it's probably at the frequency of the Earth or something like that, so it balances you with something. Is that the go?
Body vibes.
You don't have to put it anywhere near your special purpose, do you? It's something like that, is it?
It's Gwyneth Paltrow. She tells a lot of people to put things in their intimate regions that they probably shouldn't put there to begin with, like smoke and jade eggs. So, that they target imbalances, and it's programmed to an ideal frequency. I don't know what that means, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that means nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that is a pretty new one. And basically, if you're looking for the new woo, maybe her site, Goopity or whatever it is called, will be the place to look, really, isn't it?
I think so.
I better go talk to some other people. Thank you. You've all made me feel... I'm going to go on to Goop now and get something to make me feel... Have they got a male Yarny egg?
I'm sure they probably have.
It's Jessica Singer, who is one of the conveners here at Skeptics in the Pub. Jessica, I noticed that the Australian Skeptics have a new thing happening, a blood drive.
Yes, this initiative was thought of by Alethea Dean, one of our committee members, and so we've got ourselves registered with the Red Cross Blood Bank as a group under the name of Australian Skeptics, very imaginative, and anybody can roll up and donate under the name of our group. But we also thought it'd be really, really fun to have a specific occasion group donation. So we're going to have a blood drive, and it will be spread across a week. but we will all go, or we'll get as many people together to go to the Town Hall Blood Bank Donation Centre on Saturday the 8th of September. And we're going to have to stagger the bookings because there's a limited number at one time that can actually be...
Yeah, they can only handle X amount of people. Yeah.
They can only handle X amount of people, but we're all going to roll up. We're going to slot people into various time slots, somewhere between 11 o'clock and 1 p.m. And then as people finish, we're going to go off to the pub.
Hey, now I like the sound of this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good fun. And a couple of committee members can't donate for various reasons, so they will be there for support and handing out lollies and cakes and other delicious treats to the donors.
This is a wonderful idea. Now, how can people find out more about this?
Well, keep an eye out for the newsletter. There will be details in the newsletter, details on the Facebook page, details on the meetup group.
And all the regular outlets,
all the regular outlets, yeah.
And what's the date of that again?
The Saturday, the 8th of September.
Saturday, the 8th of September. I'll be there. I'll be giving blood. Maynard will be there passing out.
Yeah, look, I really think it's an important thing to do. I would love to do it, but every time I've tried, the problem is I would like to have a sedative, and the problem is if you're under the effects of a sedative, you probably can't give blood.
I'm sure we can manage something for you, Maynard.
Look, I'll see what I can find out. I've just been talking to the Naughty Corner.
I saw that, yes.
Yeah. And look, they've got lots of new woo that we hadn't thought about that's come about, and I've got some research to do. That's all I've got to say.
Very interesting. Thank you, Maynard. Thank you, Jessica.
You are most welcome. See you at the Blood Drive.
Well, Richard, Maynard learned a valuable lesson about things tonight.
What's that?
Be careful what you say to people about whether various organs are ready for various seasons. And when you're asking a question of a scientist, talk loudly and be clearly. And I was, wasn't I?
You were.
I sounded smart when I asked my question, didn't I?
You did. You did sound smart.
Sorry, we're just still working out how to use two microphones here. Mind you, we look like we are narrating an invisible sporting game, don't we? Because we've got our mic cubes up and we're like, hey, everybody, look, just check out the photo on the website. It's hilarious.
That's what we look like tonight. Well, it was a good night, Maynard. Thanks for coming along. We got some nice interviews with some skeptics along the way.
Yes, and I spoke to a scientist and I asked a clear question, but I wasn't ready for when the person gives you a fault. Oh, what do you mean by that? And what you really want to say is, I just read it on the web, is what you really want to say. But no, it was cool. It was a good thing. Now, who's up next month? Do we know?
We don't know. We'll find out soon, but whoever it is, it's sure to be a good night. Had a big crowd here tonight. People still here talking and drinking, which is really good.
And for Perth listeners to the Skeptic Zone, I'll be DJing at the Hellenic Club there in Perth, one show only on the 11th of August. So come along, we're going to be having a big back to 80s night there.
The 11th of August, Maynard in Perth. How can people find out more about that?
If they go to the Maynard website, or they go to the Maynard Facebook page, or they just drop me a line. But basically, the Hellenic Club on the 11th of August from 8 o'clock till late. I'll be playing some 80s stuff there, and we're going to have a huge night. One show only, because basically after that I'll be asked to leave Western Australia.
You will, folks. If you're in Perth, there's the clue. Go along and heckle Maynard.
Boo! Boo. See you there, people.
This Tuesday night, the 7th of August, from 7:30 p.m. at the Morty Skeptics in the Pub, just south of Melbourne. A talk by Mal Vickers, the shonkiest of the shonks. Skeptics are in a constant battle with marketeers of ineffective products. One might argue that taking a homeopathic product does you no harm, or taking mega doses of unnecessary vitamin supplements. It may be the case. However, if you are taking a non-therapeutically proven product in preference to a product that actually works, or those excess vitamins simply finish being flushed down the toilet, we need to question both the efficacy of the products and the significant financial drain on our society, over $1 billion per annum. Mal will name and shame the shonkiest therapeutic goods companies. How can this be determined? What measures can be used? Finally, he will look at what's in the TGA's new, quote, permitted indications, end quote, regulations. What have the therapeutics goods companies done to get around the new regulations and continue to sell shonky products via pharmacies? Mal Vickers is a prominent Victorian skeptic. He has been working with Ken Harvey and others for a number of years, exposing ineffective complementary medicines and ineffective healing practices. That sounds like a fascinating night. More details, look for the link on this week's show notes, or you can go to Meetup and look for Mordi, M-O-R-D-I, Skeptics in the Pub. Joining me now all the way from beautiful Auckland, New Zealand, is the chair of the New Zealand Skeptics, Craig Shearer. Hello, Craig.
Hello, Richard. How are you going?
I'm very well. Good to catch up with you. I know that I think we last met in Queenstown a couple of years back when I attended the New Zealand conference, the Skeptics conference, and my goodness me, what a wonderful conference that was in Queenstown. Just took my breath away. It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, the spot was absolutely fantastic, and it was hard to concentrate on the speaker sometimes because the view across the lake was absolutely mesmerising.
Ah, yes, that was the fatal flaw, because people could either look at the speaker or gaze out the window and see the most beautiful scenery.
Yes, indeed, it certainly is nice. But, of course, this year we're holding it in Auckland, which is we're not claiming on having any fantastic scenery for people to look out the window at. So hopefully people will pay more attention to the speakers.
I hope so. Now, this is a great chance for us to talk about the upcoming New Zealand conference. Folks, that's going to be, as Craig said, in Auckland. I noticed at a place called Butterfly Creek. And that's, that sounds very nice.
Yeah, it's a really great venue. So it's sort of a combination of sort of a wildlife park where, well, not sort of a park, but they've got animal exhibits, and they've got this lovely sort of warm room where they've got all these butterflies flying around. So you can walk through the room and see all these fantastic tropical butterflies that you would never get to see in New Zealand because we're not that tropical.
Yeah, right.
So and that is our conference venue as well. So we've got so we've hired that place for the weekend. So people who come along to the conference will also get the opportunity to visit the Butterfly Creek facilities and see all the amazing exhibits they've got there. But we've got some amazing exhibits ourselves in terms of the speakers that we've got.
Yes.
So, yeah, we've got a fantastic array of speakers, most of them from New Zealand.
No, that's quite fitting, I think.
Indeed, yes. So we tend to sort of concentrate on sort of a combination of science topics and sort of blending in with skepticism and sort of how it relates to culture and so on. So one of our skeptical speakers would be Ian Bryce, who I'm sure you're aware of. He's come from the Australian Skeptics, so he is a veteran investigator for the Australian Skeptics, and he's done a lot of investigations over time, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Oh, absolutely. And folks, this is probably worth the ticket price alone. Ian Bryce is a wealth of knowledge of skeptical investigations here in Australia, dating back well over 30 years. He's been forefront in busting charlatans and dodgy devices and all sorts of things. And his knowledge of physics is, it leaves me in the dust, truly. That would be, he's an interesting man. That would be an interesting talk, I'm sure.
Yeah, we actually had him here earlier in the year. He was over here visiting New Zealand, and so he popped up at one of our Skeptics in the Pubs.
Uh-huh.
And so we got to know him then, and that was fantastic. So we've invited him back to speak at our conference, and we've got a variety of sort of local celebrities and also academics who are speaking on a variety of science and skeptical based topics. One of the really fascinating speakers we're going to have is a guy called Dr. Alex Taylor, and he is specialising in research into the intelligence in our native kea bird. And that's something that your listeners would probably be really interested in having a look up. If you look up kea, K-E-A, this is our native alpine parrot, and they are incredibly intelligent. And you can probably find some videos on YouTube of the sort of displays of intelligence that these birds have, and they are just amazing.
Now, these are the birds that are famous for wreaking havoc amongst people and motorists and so forth.
Yeah, so it's quite perverse, really. You'll find tourists are quite fascinated with taking videos of these birds destroying cars and car parks at ski resorts. I've actually had some personal experience myself, and that I was up skiing in the South Island once, and one of these Kias flew up, and I had my ski helmet on the ground, and it took quite an interest in my ski helmet, and went up, and it was basically watching me to see whether I was watching it. And as soon as I turned my head away, it would go and walk up to the ski helmet and start attacking it and trying to pull it apart. And as soon as I turned my head back, it would turn away and walk away as if, no, not me, I'm not doing anything.
Really, folks, spend some time to go to YouTube and look up Kea Bird. There's hilarious videos.
Yeah. So another one of the interesting topics that we've got a couple of speakers who are going to be talking about the meth controversy here in New Zealand. And the idea around the meth controversy is that we have, I'm sure you're aware, there's a drug called crystal meth.
Oh, yes.
Which is unfortunately prevalent here in New Zealand. And so what's happened is that a lot of the rental tenancies here in New Zealand, there's all these companies that have popped up and said, okay, we're going to come and do some tests, chemical tests on your rental property to see whether it's been contaminated with meth.
Wow.
People cooking meth and so on. And so there's all these rental properties that are supposedly contaminated by meth, and there's been no proper standards that have been set up by the government to say, well, this level of meth is actually contamination from cooking, and it means that it's actually unsafe to actually live in the house, versus, somebody's actually smoked some meth in this house, and therefore that the level there is not as high. And we've had this sort of scandal. People have actually been chucked out of their houses because there's some contamination in their house, and they've sort of been hit with these huge bills for fixing up the houses when there's actually no sort of really logical standards related to this sort of level of contamination that is actually dangerous. So that's going to be a really interesting topic to hear about.
Wow, really an unusual but interesting topic, because I can see where a dose of skepticism would come in very useful.
Yeah, it's a great intersection between sort of skepticism and science and actually sort of critical thinking and all that good stuff that we like to promote.
And you've also got a professor who's into geology coming along.
Geology, paleoecology, and astrobiology. So that's Professor Kathleen Campbell. So she researches early life on Earth, and that has implications for the potential for life on Mars. So that's going to be really interesting as well.
Wow, that would be. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about these sort of conferences around the world. People have got the notion that you're just going to turn up and hear about the latest in classical skeptical investigations, which is great and fun, but all the other topics that skeptics love to talk about, from geology to astrophysics to everything else, really make these conferences interesting.
Yeah, indeed. And so we're kind of a little boutique conference. We're probably expecting to have somewhere around about 100, 120 people along. So it's really kind of intimate, and it's really a good chance to get to know other people that attend the conference and to actually be able to spend some quality time with the speakers as well.
And I noticed that you're going to have a welcome event on the Friday night of the convention, which will be a skeptically themed pub quiz night.
Yeah, we always like to do something like that. So that's always fun. I think last year we had a similar sort of thing, and the prize for the evening was a Scientology textbook.
Well, everybody needs one of those. And, of course, a highlight of any conference like this is the annual dinner.
Yes. So we will have the dinner on Saturday night. So that's a good chance to sort of sit down with the speakers and everybody else. And we're not yet booked, but we will be having some entertainment that evening, which will be of interest to people with critical thinking skills and interest in science.
Excellent. Well, look, Craig, it sounds like a fantastic conference. Folks, the website is conference.skeptics.nz. Head over there now, have a look. If you're in New Zealand, I think you should attend this conference, absolutely. Or if you know people listening around the world, if you know some Kiwi friends, please let them know about this upcoming conference. And as I said, I was there a couple of years back and I had a wonderful time.
And we've got, I know that there are some Australians who've already booked some tickets to head over here. So for the price of a flight to New Zealand and back, it's very good value.
I think so. And tickets to fly across the ditch from Australia to New Zealand aren't too much. Folks, the conference is from the 16th to the 18th of November. Once again, conference.skeptics.nz. Check it out. But for now, Craig Shearer, thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
Hi, I'm Darren McKee, one of the hosts of The Reality Check. Each week, my co-host and I explore a range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. You can find us on iTunes, your favorite podcasting platform, and on Facebook by searching for The Reality Check, or by following us on Twitter at @TRC_podcast. Until then, keep an open mind, but not so open your brain falls out.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, a couple of announcements from me, a couple of bits and pieces. In the last week, I was on ABC Radio here in Sydney, which was broadcast all over the state of New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory. I got about half an hour. I was speaking about the Bent Spoon Award and testing psychics and all sorts of things. I'll link to that audio on the show notes if you want to have a listen. It's a bit of fun. Also, if you visit skepticzone.tv and scroll right to the bottom of the page, I've put a link up to some of my origami posters. I've made many posters, in fact, but a couple of them I've put up in high resolution on Wiki, as it happens, and I've put a link down the bottom. So if you like to scroll down there and have a look, you might like to print those out. I think they'd be good in kids' room or maybe something like that. Anyway, those posters in high resolution are free to download. And another thank you to those people out there who subscribe with PayPal or Patreon and support the Skeptic Zone financially. And it's because of you I'm able to afford things like microphones. I can pay for other equipment, the occasional ticket to do this, that, or the other and help out my reporters. It keeps the show going. No contributions from listeners, no show. As simple as that. So if you enjoy the Skeptic Zone every week, and I encourage you then to chip in, even if it's $5 a month or $10 a month. It all helps and keeps the show on the air, on the internet, in your ears. Coming up on next week's show, more interviews with speakers who will be appearing at the Australian Skeptics National Convention, Skepticon 2018, the 13th and the 14th of October here in Sydney. We're going to bring you up to date with the story of the naturopath who is currently serving time for endangering the life of a small baby. I hope to bring you a report from the Meet the Scientist night at the Powerhouse Museum here in Sydney. And that's on the 9th of this month, Thursday the 9th. I'll put a link in the show notes. If you want to come along and speed and meet a scientist, you might see me there. And also, hopefully, I'll be bringing you a short report about the Mystery Investigator show. Once again, Maynard and I head for the Australian Museum to do our live science show for school kids. But until then, this is Richard Saunders, signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter @Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.